Imagine getting in a car, driving down a road that is barely wider than your vehicle, with cars parked on both sides, cyclists zooming past your ears, and a massive double roundabout looming ahead. Now imagine doing all of that while constantly shifting gears with your left hand, checking about 5 different mirrors every 3 seconds, and knowing that one single tiny mistake will instantly fail you and cost you hundreds of pounds. Welcome to the absolute psychological warfare that is the UK driving test. I was literally shocked when I first moved here from the US. In America, we view driving almost as a constitutional right. If you do not have a car in most parts of the US, you are basically excluded from society. You cannot get groceries, you cannot go to work, and you definitely cannot hang out with friends. Because of that, our driving tests are, to put it mildly, an absolute joke. I took my test in America when I was 16, and it consisted of driving around a quiet residential block, stopping at one stop sign, doing a 3-point turn, and parallel parking in a space that was literally large enough to fit an aircraft carrier. The whole thing took maybe 10 minutes. The examiner was eating a donut, and boom, I was handed a license to drive a giant SUV on a 10-lane highway at 70 miles per hour. In the UK, however, driving is treated as a high-level privilege. The system is designed to make sure only the absolute most competent, hyper-aware human beings are allowed behind the wheel. The streets here were not planned out on a grid system by modern engineers. They were built in medieval times for horses and carts, and then someone just threw some asphalt over them and said, "Good luck." Because of this, the UK driving test is a multi-layered beast that would utterly terrify the average American driver. We need to talk about this because the level of skill required over here is just on a completely different planet. Let us start with the sheer stats of the situation. In the US, the pass rate for a driving test is incredibly high, often sitting around 70 or 80% depending on the state. If you fail, you can usually just walk back into the DMV the next week, pay $20 and try again. In the UK, the national pass rate hovers around a brutal 48%. In major cities like London, that number drops to a terrifying 30 or 35%. That means nearly 2/3 of the people taking the test in the city fail. On top of that, the waiting list to even book a test can be 6 months long. If you fail, you cannot just try again next Tuesday. You are stuck waiting, paying for more lessons, and slowly losing your mind. And speaking of lessons, in the US, we would never dream of spending thousands of dollars on professional driving instruction. Most of us just have our parents take us to an empty supermarket parking lot on a Sunday morning, teach us which pedal is gas and which is brake, and that is it. In the UK, the average learner needs about 45 hours of professional lessons with a certified instructor, plus another 20 hours of private practice. At £35 or £40 an hour, you are easily looking at nearly £2,000 just to prepare for the test. It is a massive financial and emotional investment, and that pressure sits on your chest the entire time you are driving. Also, this is exactly the kind of thing I go much deeper on with the people who support this channel directly. So if you are sitting there thinking, okay, I need the fuller version of this story, join the membership below. That is where I share the deeper thoughts, the more personal side of all this, and the extra bits I can't always fit into the main videos. Let us talk about the first massive barrier that makes Americans break out in a cold sweat, the gear shift. In the United States, automatic cars are the absolute default. I did not even see a manual car in real life until I was in college. If you take your driving test in an automatic in the US, you are legally allowed to walk out, buy a manual stick shift sports car, and drive it off the lot, even if you have no idea how a clutch works. In the UK, they have a 2-tiered licensing system. If you take your test in an automatic, you get an automatic-only license. You are legally forbidden from driving a manual. If you want a full license that lets you drive any car, you must take the test in a manual. This means learning how to coordinate your left foot on the clutch, your right hand on the steering wheel, and your left hand on the gear stick, all while navigating steep British hills and tight corners. The sheer coordination required is enough to make an American driver pull over and start crying. Imagine stalling the car at a busy junction with 20 angry commuters behind you, and knowing that if you stall during your test and create a hazard, it is an instant fail. It is pure adrenaline-pumping terror. But before you even get to sit in the car for the practical test, you have to pass the UK theory test, which is another level of academic torture. In America, the written test is usually a quick multiple-choice quiz on a computer. The questions are incredibly basic, like what does a red octagonal sign mean? Yes, stop. It is that simple. In the UK, the theory test is a two-part exam. The first part is 50 multiple choice questions pulled from a massive bank of over 900 possible questions. You have to get at least 43 correct to pass. You have to memorize everything from stopping distances in the rain, which are double the dry distance, to the specific rules of motorway towing. But the real boss of the theory test is the second part, the hazard perception test. This is a computer simulator where you watch 14 video clips of real driving scenarios from a first-person perspective. Your job is to click the mouse the exact moment you see a developing hazard. A developing hazard is not just a parked car. It is a pedestrian who looks like they might step off the curb, or a cyclist who is starting to wobble. If you click too early, you get no points. If you click too late, you get no points. And if the computer thinks you are clicking in a pattern to cheat, it gives you a big fat 0 for that clip. Many Americans who have been driving safely for 10 years in the US fail this hazard test on their first try because the timing is so ridiculously specific. It is literally like a stressful video game where the prize is just the right to pay more money to take a driving test. If you guys are loving this video and finding this culture shock as wild as I do, please hype it up in the comments and hit that like button to show your support. It really helps an expat out. Now, let us imagine you passed the theory test. You booked your practical test 6 months in advance. The big day is finally here. You walk up to the test center, your palms are sweating, and you meet your examiner. In the US, the examiner usually just walks around your car to make sure your brake lights work, and then gets in. In the UK, the test starts before you even touch the car. The examiner will stand you in the parking lot, point to a car parked about 20 meters away, and ask you to read the license plate. This is the eyesight test. If you cannot read it, or if you hesitate too much, the test is over right then and there. Your test is cancelled, your fee is gone, and you have to go home. In America, we do a quick eye chart machine inside the DMV before we get our permit, but the idea of an immediate, high-stakes physical test in the parking lot is wild. Once you pass the eye test, you have to face the show me, tell me questions. This is where the examiner tests your mechanical knowledge of the vehicle. They will ask you one tell me question before you start driving, like tell me how you would check that the brakes are working before starting a journey. You have to explain that the brakes should not feel spongy or slack, and the car should not pull to one side. Then, while you're actually driving, they will ask you a show me question, like show me how you would wash and clean the rear windscreen. You have to operate the control while keeping complete control of the car on a public road. In the US, most drivers do not even know how to pop their hood, let alone explain how to check their engine coolant levels or brake fluid reservoirs. If you get these questions wrong in the UK, it counts as a fault, which immediately puts you on the back foot. Now, quick thing before we get to the absolute worst parts of this testing process. The data on this channel shows that over 80% of you watching right now are actually not subscribed. That means you are showing up for the content, but the algorithm has no reason to show you the next video. Hit subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Now let us get into the actual driving part of the test, which lasts for about 40 minutes. In the US, a test might last 10 or 15 minutes if you are lucky. In the UK, 40 minutes of driving under intense scrutiny is a marathon of concentration. You are allowed a maximum of 15 minor faults, which they call driver faults, but a single serious or dangerous fault is an automatic instant fail. And the line between a minor fault and a serious fault is incredibly thin. For example, if you do not check your blind spot before moving off, that is not a warning, that is an instant fail. If you do not look over your shoulder when reversing, instant fail. The physical environment of British roads is the ultimate test of nerves. In America, our roads are wide, spacious, and usually run on a very predictable grid. If a road has parked cars, there is still plenty of room for 2 lanes of traffic to pass each other. In the UK, residential streets are incredibly narrow, and people park on both sides of the road. This means a 2-way street effectively becomes a single-lane obstacle course. You have to constantly look ahead, spot oncoming traffic, and decide who has priority. If there is an oncoming car, you have to find a gap between the parked cars, pull in, let them pass, and then pull back out. This requires a level of spatial awareness and cooperation that simply does not exist in most American suburbs. If you hesitate too long, you fail for lack of progress. If you push through and force the other car to reverse, you fail for causing a hazard. It is a constant game of split-second decision-making, and then we have the maneuvers. Oh, the maneuvers. In the US, parallel parking is usually the only trick you have to show. And in many states, they do not even test that anymore. In the UK, you will be asked to perform one of three highly technical maneuvers. The first is parallel parking behind a real car on a busy public road, not between traffic cones in a quiet DMV parking lot, but next to a real resident's expensive vehicle with traffic passing you. The second possible maneuver is reversing into a parking bay at the test center. Sounds simple, but you must stay perfectly within the lines and maintain constant 360-degree observation. If you look at your backup camera for more than a second without physically turning your head to check your blind spots, you fail. The third maneuver, which is notoriously stressful, is pulling up on the right-hand side of the road, reversing for 2 car lengths in a straight line, and then rejoining traffic. Now, to an American, pulling up on the right side of the road against oncoming traffic is mind-blowing. In the US, crossing over to park on the left against the flow of traffic is illegal in many states, but in the UK, it is a standard driving practice. Doing it during a test means crossing over into the oncoming lane, aligning your car parallel to the curb, reversing backwards smoothly while checking your rear window and blind spots, and then safely crossing back over into your original lane when oncoming traffic is flying toward you. The sheer amount of mirror checks and blind spot observations required for this is dizzying. In the UK, they teach the 6-point check, which means you must physically look at 6 different points around the car before you even think about moving. If you miss one of those points, the examiner's pen will fly to the paper and your heart will sink. And finally, we have to talk about the ultimate boss of British driving, roundabouts. In America, roundabouts are rare, mystical structures that terrify locals. When an American encounters a single-lane roundabout, everyone stops, panics, and tries to wave each other through. In the UK, roundabouts are the lifeblood of the road network. They are everywhere and they are massive. You have mini roundabouts, which are basically just a white circle painted on the ground that you have to navigate. You have multi-lane roundabouts where you have to pre-select your lane based on which exit you are taking and then navigate spiral road markings that push you outward as you go. And then you have the legendary double roundabouts where you exit one roundabout and immediately enter another one. Navigating a complex roundabout during a UK driving test is like playing chess at 90 miles per hour. You have to approach in the correct gear, look to your right to yield to oncoming traffic, find a safe gap, merge smoothly, maintain your lane discipline, check your left mirror, signal left at the exact moment you pass the exit before the one you want, and exit safely, all while shifting gears and maintaining your speed. If you cut across a lane line, fail. If you signal too early, fail. If you hesitate and miss a safe gap, fail. It's a masterclass in multitasking, and it is the #1 reason why people fail their test in the UK. So when you compare the two systems, it is easy to see why an American driver would find the UK test absolutely terrifying. The US system is designed to get you on the road as quickly and easily as possible because society depends on it. The UK system is designed to test your absolute limits, ensuring that by the time you earn that pink plastic license, you are a highly disciplined defensive driver capable of navigating some of the tightest, most complex road networks in the world. If you are an American living in the UK, or if you have ever tried driving on these tiny, winding roads, let me know in the comments. Did you pass your test here, or did the roundabouts completely break your spirit? Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.